Every football fan knows Erling Haaland. The goals, the records, the trophies. Today, he's one of the biggest stars in world football. But every legend has a beginning. And Haaland's story didn't begin in Manchester. It didn't begin in Dortmund. It began on a Champions League night that most people barely remember. September 17th, 2019. While Europe was watching football's biggest names, Barcelona, Liverpool, Manchester City, another match was quietly writing history. Red Bull Salzburg against Genk. It wasn't the biggest game of the week. Few people expected anything extraordinary. To most fans, it was just another Champions League group stage match. But hidden inside Salzburg's starting lineup was a 19-year-old striker from Norway. His name was Erling Haaland. Inside football, people already knew he was special. Scouts admired his athleticism, his finishing, his incredible scoring record in Austria. But one question remained. Could he do it against Europe's best? The Champions League is where reputations are built or destroyed. If Haaland wanted the football world to remember his name, this was his chance. He just didn't know that 90 minutes later, everything would change. The match began quietly. Nothing suggested history was about to unfold. Then, just 2 minutes after kickoff, the ball reached Haaland inside the penalty area. One touch, one finish, goal. It looked effortless. The kind of finish great strikers make look routine. Salzburg led 1-0. Most people thought it was simply the perfect start. They had no idea it was only the beginning. As the game continued, Haaland grew stronger. He never rushed. He kept moving, always finding space, always staying one step ahead of the defenders. 34 minutes into the match, he scored again. Now people were paying attention. Commentators stopped calling him the young striker. Instead, they repeated his name, Erling Haaland, again and again. Across Europe, people were asking the same question. Who is this kid? Before halftime, the answer became impossible to ignore. 45 minutes, 3 goals, a Champions League hat-trick. At just 19 years old, on his Champions League debut, the stadium erupted. The commentators could hardly believe what they were witnessing. Across Europe, journalists rewrote their headlines. Scouts opened fresh reports. Club executives made phone calls. A player most fans had never heard of had suddenly become the biggest story in European football. Yet what impressed people most wasn't a hat trick. It was his composure. No wild celebrations. No panique. No sign that the moment was too big. He looked as though he had been waiting for this stage his entire life. For most young players, the Champions League is a test. For Haaland, it became an introduction, not just to Europe, but to the world. 3 goals made the headlines. But they weren't what impressed Europe's top scouts the most. Goals can be lucky. A defender makes a mistake. A goalkeeper has a bad night. One great match doesn't guarantee a great career. Scouts know that. That's why they don't just watch the ball. They watch everything around it. How a player moves before the pass. How quickly he reacts. How he reads space. How often he makes the right decision. That night, Haaland passed every test. Again and again, he arrived exactly where the ball was about to be. Not by chance, but by instinct. His timing was exceptional. His first few steps were explosive. Before defenders realized the danger, he was already behind them. At nearly 2 meters tall, he moved like a much smaller player. Most strikers of his size rely on strength. Haaland combined strength with speed. That combination is rare and incredibly difficult to defend. But perhaps his greatest weapon wasn't physical at all. It was his mindset. After scoring once, he still wanted the next chance. After scoring twice, he made the same intelligent runs. He never chased spectacular moments. He chased the next opportunity. That's the difference between a talented player and a great striker. Former defenders often say, the hardest forwards to stop aren't always the most skillful. They're the ones who never stop moving. The ones who force defenders to think every second. That night, Haaland became exactly that kind of player. By the final whistle, Europe hadn't simply discovered another young talent. It had discovered a striker built for football's biggest stage. Inside club offices across Europe, the conversation changed. The question was no longer, can he play at this level? It became, can we sign him before someone else does? Sometimes. That's how quickly football changes. One match, 90 minutes, a completely different future. When the final whistle blew, the match was over, but the race to sign Erling Haaland had just begun. Across Europe, football websites changed their headlines. The story was no longer Salzburg's victory. It was Haaland. Fans who had never watched an Austrian league match were suddenly searching for his name. Inside football clubs, the reaction was very different. Scouts returned to the video. Analysts reviewed every movement. Recruitment departments updated their reports. Executives asked the same question. Why weren't we watching him sooner? One match doesn't complete a transfer. Football doesn't work that way, but can change priorities. Before that night, Haaland was a promising young striker. After that night, he became one of Europe's hottest prospects. That difference was worth millions. Over the following months, every goal increased the attention. Every performance increased his value. Then, in December 2019, Borussia Dortmund made their move. They didn't wait. They acted. Looking back today, the decision seems obvious. But football history is filled with young stars who never fulfilled their promise. Dortmund believed Haaland would be different. They were right. Within weeks, he was scoring in Germany. Soon after, he became one of the most feared strikers in Europe. But none of that started in Dortmund. It started on one unforgettable night. In Salzburg, football has never lacked talented players. Every year, new stars emerge. Young players break records. Wonder kids capture headlines. Most of them are eventually forgotten. Talent alone has never guaranteed greatness. What separates legends is what they do when the biggest opportunity finally arrives. On September 17th, 2019, Erling Haaland was given 90 minutes. Just 90. No one knew that one match would change the direction of his career. But when the moment arrived, he was ready. He didn't force the game. He didn't try to become the hero. He simply played the football he had spent years preparing to play. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One performance, one unforgettable night, one opportunity taken at exactly the right moment. After Salzburg, football stopped asking, can he do it? Instead, people began asking, how good can he become? The answer came quickly. Goals in Germany. On an ordinary Champions League night, when almost nobody is watching. For Erling Haaland, those 90 minutes weren't just another match. They were the beginning of everything.
Guidance I forgot. It's somewhere lost to the cages of chaos. I forgot. Somewhere it must be written. I just lost my access to the map. Somewhere.
Thank you for watching. This story is over, but the next story is already waiting to be drawn.